A big thank you to the CA1st movement for enabling this opportunity for me to maybe reflect on my 54 years of life, 27 years to be exact, before 1994 when I cast my very first vote, and exactly 27 years after that particular date. We all know Madiba was incarcerated for 27 years as well, so a very important number in our minds. A very important number that I think we need to consider at this very watershed, the Rubicon moment in the history of local government politics in Cape Town. At this time, I hope you've been really interrogating the manifestos that have been going around. I've been looking at them. You need to really look at all of them and see which one speaks to you more so. But go beyond that. Also interrogate the manifestos that came in 2016. Scarily, a lot of the things that you find in the 2016 manifestos are reappearing again now in 2021 because promises were made like they've been made prior to 2016 and they weren't kept. Look at the mayoral candidates and you can see arrogance. When parties tell you they will not tell you who the mayoral candidate is because you don't deserve to know, then they don't deserve your vote. There are candidates that are 34 years old, born 1986. That is a year after P.W. Botha's Rubicon speech, 3 years after the formation of the UDF in 1983. People who have not an understanding of what life was like before 1994. People who have no understanding and appreciation for the kind of hardship suffered in Cape Town during those apartheid years. We have mayoral candidates that have been with 4 different parties as well in the past couple of years. Be very serious when you look at these people and interrogate their contribution to where Cape Town's at or where we've come from. We know that we haven't achieved much in the 27 years in 1994. Now, the people behind me were active. They were youth activists prior to 1994. They put their schooling on hold to fight for a better South Africa, and most importantly, to fight for a South Africa that brings to the youth more opportunity. When 1994 came, they continued their studies, went to academia, started their business, went into the private sector. They had skills. They did not need politics for a job. And they've been there lamenting the direction that South Africa has gone in. Again, 27 years later, they're coming out of their spaces that they've been in. They're saying they're going to give up what they've worked so hard on to come back into politics, to make South Africa the kind of place that they fought for. So I only have respect for these people who know what life was like before apartheid, who know what they fought for and sacrificed for, and who are now stepping out when retirement could be an option for them, stepping out to make South Africa the kind of place they dreamt and fought for in the period prior to 1994. And they are led by a person who's been in leadership for all of his life in the anti-apartheid struggle. He's been in leadership in government structures. He's also retired a good couple of years back, started the SA1st movement in 2016 because of the corruption, the maladministration that was ever present. Speaking truth to power, a manifesto that I think speaks volumes, one that you should take very seriously, one that is progressive. Can we see some progressive gains and not steadily go back to a time of despair? Can we bring some hope? Can we act out hope for the people that are desperately needing it in this beautiful city? Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to introduce you to the leader and mayoral candidate of the credible Alternative First movement, Advocate Rod Solomons.
Good day, Clarence. Thanks for those inspiring words. Good day, Capetonians. I am Rod Solomons. I'm the mayoral candidate for the city of Cape Town for a movement called the Credible Alternative First Movement, CA1st, you'll see on the ballot. I want to talk to you a bit about why did I decide to step up to the plate? What made me do it? South Africa is a unique nation in that a democratic republic was struggled for and created for us to be united as a people in all our diversity. Yet as the years go by, we find ourselves increasingly divided. This is particularly noticeable in our beautiful Cape Town. As a civil society organization, the SA1st Forum, that I started in 2016 with 15 other people, we empowered ordinary South Africans to get their voices back, and we relentlessly spoke out against those in authority, whether in local, provincial, or national government, who abused their authority, were involved in corruption, provided shoddy services to our people, gave Capetonians Day Zero with the water crisis, hit Capetonians with high electricity and water surcharges, divided Capetonians even further, or treated citizens with disdain. We said, enough is enough. What further perturbed me was when I saw the candidates who the other key parties in Cape Town offered as potential mayors. I just saw white male candidates in a diverse and fractured city like Cape Town. That was it for me. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against white males, but in this day and age, it is totally unacceptable that this was the best for Cape Town. I then put everything I planned to do with my life on hold and decided to enthuse other ordinary Capetonians to join me in stepping up to the plate and to offer Capetonians a credible alternative. Capetonians had enough of being taken for granted and used as voting fodder to promote the interests of political parties. Many Capetonians lost hope in the current city administration, and many people feel or felt that there are no other options. The seemingly deliberate inefficiencies of the current DA-led administration, steered by their elitism and classism, has left so many Capetonians frustrated and without the services that they deserve. When Capetonians speak up, their pleas fall on deaf ears or are met with bureaucratic or political jargon or indifference. This must come to an end, and as we as a credible alternative first movement will see to that. As we evolve from a value-based society organization, the SA1st Forum, into the credible alternative first movement, or CA1st, we present our offering to the people of Cape Town in order to restore their dignity and provide them with the kind of services they deserve. We also are resolute in a zero tolerance to corruption and an absolute priority to the poor and the middle class, whilst pushing back against the elements of classism that divide us as Capetonians. To the people of Cape Town, who have been waiting for another option and a trustworthy, honest, efficient, and unbiased municipal approach, we say, you do not need to wait any longer. As a credible alternative, we wish to show that one can be in public office to serve the community with no need to be corrupt, arrogant, or wanting to enrich yourself, your family, and your friends. In this manifesto and our various policy offerings linked to this, we wish to indicate to Capetonians what we mean by a credible alternative and striving to be a humane, caring, can-do Cape Town and Cape Town City Council. Vote for CA1st on 1 November 2021 to enable us to show what we can do. Let me talk to you a bit briefly about where we come from, because obviously it's important for you to know that some of you don't know it. In 2016, a small group of 15 individuals, I got a small group of 15 individuals together in a boardroom at Oudermolen Eco Village in Pinelands, and we said, enough is enough. We could no longer stand by and allow corruption, looting, abuse of authority, and criminality in government to go on unchecked and unchallenged. We could no longer stand by and watch political parties make a mockery of our democracy by putting party or party leaders before people and before the Constitution every time. We could no longer stomach policies and processes at government at all levels that served only to deepen inequality rather than to reduce inequality. We could no longer stand the empty but inflammatory political rhetoric of politicians and political parties that served only to divide us as a South African nation from ourselves and from others. In response, we created the South Africa 1st Forum or SA1st Forum. Our rallying cry was people first. We put people, country, and the Constitution first, before the party and before class interest. We mobilize ordinary citizens against the corruption of the then Jacob Zuma presidency and the criminal complicity of the ANC in state capture. We campaigned against the City of Cape Town's handling of the water crisis and the way they make services like electricity more expensive with increased surcharges or tariffs. We campaigned against corruption and the deployment of incompetent and dishonest officials. We marched alongside like-minded people and organizations in protest against gender-based violence and racism. We protested the criminal conspiracies in government that sought to weed out honest and competent civil servants in order to clear the path for continued corruption and abuse of state office and resources. And we also called for more effective responses to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. And through this, we grew the SA1st Forum from 15 individuals to over 15,000 people that are members or supported us. And they indicated that they want to be part of the change they want to see in South Africa. Today, in 2021, after much reflection and consultation, we have decided that it is not enough for us to stand outside of the formal political process, shouting, campaigning, and protesting to be heard. We need to step up and step into the council chamber and ensure that the principle of people, country, and constitution first, before party, is lived, seen, felt, and heard in the council chambers of the city of Cape Town. You will ask, what set us apart? What sets us apart is the fact that we commit to put the interests of the people of Cape Town first and not the interests of the party and its leaders. We are fielding credible candidates who are in it to be of service to the people, the Constitution, and the country. Our candidates are mandated to at all times serve in order to make a positive difference in the lives of our communities. Our candidates are not going to the council to get jobs for life, but to serve the people, as most of us already had or have our own careers. We are proud of the fact that many influential as well as ordinary members of our society are endorsing the CA1st as a possible governing entity of Cape Town. We offer credible solutions to the challenges facing the people of Cape Town. These solutions will focus on water, electricity, transport, trading, housing, sport and recreation, etc., so that people are provided with the kind of services that they deserve. Due to our track record from the SA1st Forum time, we will uphold an absolute zero tolerance to corruption and abuse of power, and everything that we do will be underpinned by a values charter that is derived from the SA1st Forum. We fought corruption, incompetence and self-interest from the streets, and will continue to do so from the benches of the council chambers. Let me talk to you briefly about some of our values that I spoke about earlier on that underpin us. And these values are derived from when we started the SA1st Forum, and they stand the test of time. You can read some more about them in our manifesto, but let me highlight some of them. The one is integrity. The other one is respect for people and for democracy. Commitment to human rights and dignity. Now I want to talk about something that I would like to call the elephant in the room. And that is the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion in this city of Cape Town. We acknowledge that there are many dimensions of diversity within Cape Town. While equality in South Africa is entrenched in our constitution, it alone does not make all South Africans equal. Our history of colonialism, slavery, imperialism, and apartheid has contrived together to make South Africa a very unequal society. The legacy of our unequal and racist past is present in the structural inequalities of our everyday lives and the continued disenfranchisement of the poor and the ongoing destabilization of the middle class, particularly in Cape Town. Our current history is one in which governments have served the interests of certain individuals over the interests of the country, and have used the benefit of having seats in parliament and councils to advance their own interests over the interests of the people of this country and this constitution. The CA1st movement, like the South African Human Rights Commission, is concerned with the eradication of inequality and unfair discrimination, particularly based on race, gender, sex, disability, and sexual orientation. And our communication, decisions, and actions are guided by this understanding of equality as an aspiration that we must work towards. We believe that equality can only be achieved through a commitment to equity in policy making that will result in redefining the city's mandate and, importantly, how that mandate is executed. Equity is about accepting the principle that all Capetonians, regardless of the varied dimensions of difference, should be able to access opportunities for them to realize their full potential as individuals and communities. A commitment to equity in local government is recognition that people who are economically, politically, and historically disenfranchised do not have the same access to opportunity as people who are or were not. A commitment to equity is about giving individuals and communities a hands up to achieve equality. The CA1st movement is committed to equity in thought, in word, and in deed in local government. Inclusion is about doing all that we can to ensure that all dimensions of diversity can participate in defining what it means to have a city that truly works for all. Inclusion in local government is about making sure that the people of Cape Town have a say in what the city should be doing for them today and in the future. Besides dealing with diversity through equity and inclusion, it also makes economic sense to create the conditions for all citizens to reach their full potential, because the growth and development of the city will benefit from citizens that function at their full potential. Let me talk a bit about ethics and ethicality. We recognize that our entry into the formal political realm is fraught with the danger of being subsumed within the cauldron of corruption and self-interest that we, as the SA1st Forum and other civil society organizations, have decried in our formal body politic for so many years. For that reason, we demand of every representative of the CA1st to conduct themselves and hold themselves to account to the highest levels of truth, fairness, and honesty, and to always do what is right and justified by our values, and I mentioned some of our values earlier on. And we reject all forms of dishonesty. We are a people-centered organization that subscribes to the principle that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, and therefore do not want to turn parts of Cape Town into enclaves of privilege, which are protected from sharing access to that privilege with the rest of Cape Town. We are anti-racist. This means that in word or deed, that a credible alternative first movement will oppose any and all forms of racial prejudice, systemic racism, and the oppression of specific racial groups. We will vigorously oppose racists and racism wherever they surface, and we will encourage non-racists to emerge from a tacit acceptance of racism to an active opposition to racism. We are committed to restorative memory and restorative justice. We recognize that colonial and apartheid race theories and practices have severely crippled our society, and that South Africa is in urgent need of healing in its human relationships, based on an honest evaluation of legacies of dispossession, where restorative memory and restorative justice is closely bound up. We unreservedly seek redress of historical and present-day social inequality. The realities of apartheid divisions and ghettoization of certain communities have persisted throughout our 27-year history. It is manifested in the marginalization of and discrimination against poorer sections of persons of color. In addition, the living conditions pertaining to the sprawling Cape Flats compared to the Atlantic seaboard and part of the southern and northern suburbs is a blight on our commitment to justice and equality. This constitutes a tale of two cities, rich and poor, and this is wholly unacceptable to the CA1st movement. We view political office as a public service in which the only interests that matter are the interests of the constituents or the people we serve and the mandates of the Constitution. We do not and will not field candidates whose only interest is the earning of a salary from the public purse. We cannot and will not support individuals who seek to use public office as a means to or a stepping stone to self-enrichment. We exist only to give voice to those Capetonians whose voices are often not heard, and when heard, are often ignored. Let me talk to you briefly about some of the things that we want to do. One of the big things that we want to do is we want to transform the business model that is how the city of Cape Town operates. It is admirable that the city of Cape Town is able to achieve clean audits year on year and balance its budget. It is particularly so because most municipalities across the length and breadth of South Africa find it impossible to emulate this model of good financial governance. However, what is also clear is that good financial governance has not addressed the fundamental inequalities of rich and poor in Cape Town. It is also clear that good financial governance has not addressed the marginalization and racial ghettoization of up to 80% of our Cape Town population. Good financial governance has also not prevented the increasing precariousness in which a poor and dwindling middle class finds itself in. We need a new business model for the city of Cape Town that builds on a history of good financial governance of the outgoing city administration and ones before them, but which is transformative with a specific focus on addressing inequality and breaking down the legacy of racial marginalization and ghettoization, and providing a stable economic environment for all the people of Cape Town to thrive. Therefore, within that business model, there needs to be a reprioritization that allows for a balanced and equitable approach to financial investment, resources allocation, services allocation, and opportunity allocation to meet the needs of the diverse population that inhabits Cape Town, the majority who are ravaged by joblessness and the significant increases in the cost of living. We will also put all our energies into ensuring that the City of Cape Town officials and councillors understand and internalize that the city is a service organization and not a corporate citizen or a business out to make a profit. The city needs to provide its ratepayers with the services they deserve, and I put that in capital letters, and not those that the city administration think they must get. The CA1st movement will engage with planners, financial analysts, local government experts, other relevant professionals, other civil society entities, as well as councillors from other parties about the building of an alternative business model that has redress of historical and present-day inequality and prosperity for all at its core. We also want to provide decent housing. Let's talk about that. Decent and affordable housing for everyone is a right and not a privilege. This is a departure point for the CA1st movement as we take our people first activism from the streets into the City of Cape Town's chambers. For us, the provision of housing is more than just putting a roof over someone's head. The provision of housing must ensure that people are able to live a dignified life in an environment that allows people to grow and flourish with work, education, recreation, and worship opportunities for all, and with access to basic services such as water, electricity, sewage, transport, and safety. The provision of housing is therefore one of the biggest issues for the CA1st because through it, we live our value of human rights and dignity, and it drives the provision of services which must be at the core of the city's value proposition to its citizens. It is even more so because of broken promises made by unscrupulous politicians about providing housing for the homeless, poor, and the backyard dwellers whose numbers continue to grow, even as the promises continue to be broken. We commit ourselves to finding out what the plans are and sharing these with the people of Cape Town. We want to review the housing list and unlock the bureaucratic issues that continue to frustrate the efforts of Capetonians who desire only to have a roof over their heads. We want to understand and unlock the bottlenecks which prevent this housing delivery and unravel the complexity of the dependency of bulk services such as water, sewage, or electricity. We will take the people of Cape Town into confidence and share all information relevant to this crucial subject as we do the work with the people of Cape Town. We commit to annually spending the budgets allocated by the National Treasury for basic services such as housing, transport, water and sewage in an open and transparent manner, and not to return these funds as unspent to the National Treasury. We want to provide affordable services. We acknowledge that the city needs to collect revenue to be sustainable and to sustainably fund the development of the city. However, we are also painfully aware that the costs of basic services such as water, electricity and sewage removal has been creeping steadily upwards. These have no to little effect on the upper middle class and the wealthy, but they impact significantly on the vast majority of working poor, unemployed, and the increasingly precarious lower middle class in Cape Town. The cost of these services speaks very directly to how the city generates revenue and what it spends that money on. For that reason, we commit as a CA1st to an intensive analysis of the budget, of the city's budget, with a view to shifting their priorities more sharply towards redress of inequality and future prosperity rather than simply balance the budget. In this regard, I want to indicate around the surcharge, the additional surcharge that the city places on electricity and water, that should we be elected and be in a position of authority in the city of Cape Town, when we move in there, we will immediately cut those surcharges by 50% and investigate further how those surcharges can be fully removed, and the city must reprioritize its existing surpluses, and it needs to look at other sources of revenue. We want to be the engine of transformation, because if Cape Town continues to grow at the rate that the UN expects cities to grow over the next 30 years, the 4.6 million Capetonians will grow to close to 7 million by 2050. And the numbers of unemployed and homeless and working poor will continue to grow. So the city is both the problem and it can be the solution. Intelligent leadership will understand how these two issues are harnessed to build a successful, inclusive, and prosperous 21st century city for all of its residents. If the City Council continues to be managed in the way that it currently is, the only areas of growth for that additional 2.4 million people will be in slums and ghettos. There is not enough housing to accommodate the current population and not enough planned housing to accommodate the expected increase in population. There are not enough work opportunities to enable those who are looking to work, and there is not enough economic development to accommodate those who are still to come to want to work in the city. That is a current City Council's problem. If the City Council is to become the solution, it needs to recognize that the building of housing, the development of roads and infrastructure, and the provision of services, the production of green energy, and effective waste management are themselves both productive activities that will provide employment opportunities and individual growth, but are also investments in the city of the future that works for all. If the City Council of Cape Town is to become the solution, it needs to recognize that the land that it owns and it dispossesses of for short-term revenue generation are assets that, if they were developed by the city, could create sustainable revenue to the council for the benefit of all of its citizens into perpetuity. If the city is to become the solution, It needs to more aggressively pursue the creation of an environment that encourages large enterprises to create work opportunities here and at the same time enable small businesses and entrepreneurs to get off the ground, to thrive and to be sustainable. The city of Cape Town has a potential to be the engine of transformation of itself. Yet, there is nothing in what it currently is saying or doing that informs Capetonians of that vision, and nothing that invites Capetonians from all walks of life to be part of it. Our vision as a CA1st is of Cape Town being the engine of transformation in every Capetonian's mind, on every Capetonian's lips, and in every Capetonian's heart. We will put all our energies into advancing the narrative of Cape Town being a humane, a caring, a can-do, and an entrepreneurial city that has the interests of all its citizens at heart and treats everyone with respect, and we will push actively back against this ugly divide that is taking root in Cape Town. And I want to talk about the issue of our approach to equality and safety of women. Women have a right to equality in all spheres of life. This means nothing if it is not actively fought for, and all forms of gender prejudice and gender oppression, including systemic gender oppression, needs to be identified and weeded out. The scourge of South African society remains gender-based violence, and the combating and elimination of gender-based violence is a prerequisite to the ongoing pursuit of equality of women and equity for women in all spheres of life. We commit ourselves to utilize the resources of the city to combat gender-based violence on the one hand, but also to provide shelter and security to women and girls who are the victims of such gender-based violence. And I want to talk about our approach to entrepreneurship, and we want to encourage entrepreneurship. The CA1st movement, should we be in charge of the city of Cape Town, will make it easier for entrepreneurs and business owners to operate businesses within the city of Cape Town in order to address the spiraling youth unemployment rate and make it easier for families and informal traders to earn a living. We believe in a blended and integrated economic model where entrepreneurs as well as established businesses and large, small, medium and micro enterprises can all share trading spaces with the ultimate goal of making Cape Town a vibrant trading hub for all, and where formal and informal economies have equitable market share and share in the revenue streams that will result in stronger local communities. We want to create the opportunities for supply chains to emanate from diverse local sources, believing that we have sufficient capacity to use local resourcefulness as supply chains for the Cape Town economy. We want both government and the private sector to use local supply chains for the requirements. Then before I end, let me talk a bit about our approach to sport, recreation, arts and culture. We will make it easier for sport and cultural bodies to use underutilized spaces owned by the City of Cape Town for recreational and cultural endeavor. We wish for Cape Town to be a vibrant cultural city, where the City of Cape Town facilitates the unleashing of the unique creative talents and endeavors of those in the arts and culture sphere. We wish for cultural activity to take a central stage in community life, and the benefits of partaking in arts and culture be fully harnessed for the benefit of all of us. When visitors think of Cape Town, they must say, wow, those people have talent and it's a vibrant melting pot of cultural expression. The city of Cape Town must play a facilitating and harnessing role, but in a less bureaucratic way in order to unleash the contribution of the arts to human well-being, social transformation, and economic growth of Cape Town. As President Mandela used to say, sport has a power to inspire. It has a power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand, and sport can create hope where once there was only despair. Close quotes. Hence, as a CA1st movement, we recognize the integral role that sport and culture has played in community life, and we wish to harness it better. Time and again, our communities have produced highly talented sports people from successful run community-based sports clubs. Through these clubs, sport has played a critical role in addressing social challenges in community. The closing down of the Department of Sport and Recreation by the City of Cape Town was a cardinal error made by politicians and officials who do not understand the role and value of sports clubs in our communities. We will reinstate this department and integrate it with culture to play an enabling role and ensure that community-based sports rises to its former glory. That is our offering in respect of our manifesto. We obviously will have more detail in respect of position papers on various matters like housing, the environment and cleaning, safety of Capetonians, sports, arts and culture, unemployment that I spoke about earlier on, the green economy, also accountability, corruption and whistleblowing within the city of Cape Town, how the city operates and public transport. I want to conclude by saying, for us, it is not about opposing for the sake of opposing. Where something makes sense, we will support it, even if it comes from an opposing political party. Our focus will be on what we have to offer to the people of Cape Town. We will ever point out during this election campaign where some of the parties tell lies or where they are royal with the truth, especially the governing party. It is our humble opinion that the ANC is not a factor in these elections, and our focus will be on the shoddy job that the DA did in running the city for the benefit of the poor and the middle class. It is therefore that the CA1st movement, the Credible Alternative First movement, we will be contesting all the wards in Cape Town on a PR basis. We will field candidates in most of the wards, and we will also support some of the independent candidates that we can work with. I thank you for listening to us, and that is our offering. Please internalize, please examine it, engage with us, and hopefully on 1st of November, you will make your cross next to CA1st. Thank you, Advocate Rod Solomons. I'm the convener of the CA1st movement, and I'm its mayoral candidate. Thank you.